Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. It's a hard act to follow, but I'll try my best. I'm not drumming anything, but maybe just the beat of the opportunity around AI. I'm here today to talk to you about why you should stop obsessing about AI models and think about AI as a platform. Now, I know it's a big statement coming out of Microsoft, and you know we're representing here Azure OpenAI as well. So obviously, the model is very important to us. But I feel like every time we talk about a model, that session becomes obsolete in about 6 weeks. When there's a new model that's dropping out, it can do things better and faster. So maybe it's time for us to switch gears and think about something else, and how can we build on top of those models while letting them continue to evolve. So let's talk a little bit about history. Obviously, Microsoft and OpenAI, that's the biggest partnership that started off everything that you're just seeing within the AI revolution. We built some of the world's most capable supercomputers. OpenAI has delivered some of the best foundation models and continuing to deliver this. And together we're building a vast world AI dev infrastructure. And that is something that took us from a journey from November 2022 when ChatGPT was announced. And you can see here some of the examples. I think the interesting thing that I'm seeing when I'm looking at that example, it's not that exciting anymore, right? When that just turned out, and I worked on ChatGPT all night, I was mesmerized. My mind was blown away. But today, this is something that even an open source edge model can do. So what we've seen is that the technology moved so fast that something that was so exciting, that model is now considered to be quite old and obsolete. If we're looking at what happened in March 2023, GPT-4 was announced. This is the first time we started moving beyond just a language model and large language model to multi-model. So you can see here you can get a lot of different inputs and outputs, and this is something we're trying to expand as we go. You've probably seen some of the voice capabilities or Sora for video. That's going to be something that we're going to continue to invest. So we're not just AI for language, we're now AI for everything. And that just dropped about 2 months ago. Hopefully you can hear it.
I'm awesome. Listen, I got some huge news.
Oh, do tell. I'm all ears.
Well, in a few minutes, I'm going to be interviewing at OpenAI. Have you heard of them?
OpenAI. Huh? Sounds vaguely familiar. Kidding, of course. That's incredible, Rocky. What kind of interview?
Well, it's for a software engineering role, but I just need to know, do I look presentable, professional?
Well, Rocky, you definitely have the I've been coding all night look down, which could actually work in your favor. Maybe just run a hand through your hair or lean into the mad cheese line. Your enthusiasm is what's really good.
So that was GPT-4o. This is the first model that is not just taking data, but also responding in a very natural way. You've just seen a demo of the sound or the new voice model, the speech model. This will cascade in a few weeks. And that's just going to take us into the next level. So now it doesn't actually get you the right answer, the most natural answer. The interaction itself becomes much more natural. It is multi-model, input and output. You saw that there's a real-time response, and it is safe by design. What can we say about GPT-4o? One, it is by far the best model, and you can see a lot of the benchmarks here, but it's not just the best. It's also cheaper, and it's also faster. So celebrating all of this could have taken me like 15 minutes, which is what I have here. But I actually want to switch gears and say, this is a great model, but I think it's a great example. Why should we stop obsessing about models? Because this is the model right now, but if we look at 2025, this will be the model. It would be better, it would be faster, and it would be cheaper. And if I'm looking at 2026, that would be the model. It would be better, faster, and cheaper. So this is a good time to stop obsessing about those models, because this is what's going to happen. And try to think about what can we build on top of them as a platform. And we're talking about looking at this opportunity not from the model perspective, what we call AI as a platform, which means we'll let those things grow and evolve, but we'll start building solution experiences and opportunities on top of them so we can grow with them in parallel, not just wait for that one shiny model that comes out. And why do we think AI is a good platform? Why do we not think that this is just for summarizing things or doing some manipulation with text? This is a good example of what happened with technical or with software development for years. So you can see every software you're building is starting off very easy, right? Very easy UX. It's a very small, limited amount of features. And as you go and as you build more features, that becomes more and more complex. You add more screens, you add more radio buttons, and combo boxes, everything becomes much more complicated. At some point, when you're trying to do something good and give more feature, drive more personalization, drive more complexity, that app becomes too complicated for the common user, and they just stop using it. And this is why we start facing a lot of the adoption issues. And if you've seen Microsoft, specifically our CEO, Satya Nadella, he came to pretty much every room in Microsoft and decided to stop investing in features and start investing in adoption. This is why you've seen co-pilots across the board. Because at this point, if I'm introducing a new feature to Word or Excel, and our team are working on it for like 8 months, and they're delivering this, and they're building it, the chances of 0.5% of the people that are using it to actually discover and use that feature is very, very low. And this is a super low number. So we're building and building and building. There's no reason for it, because every user is now in a cognitive load that if it's not super easy to use, he's never going to discover that. And that's a good example from a visual perspective why AI is a great platform. It's always going to be better to use the other one, the hot water heater with a lot of buttons, but it's always going to be simpler to use the simple one. And AI is the first time that we can actually mitigate both of those. If we're looking at this from a platform perspective, not just from, hey, that could summarize some things or that can create cool pictures. Because it does support universal interface. And you've seen some of the examples. I'm talking to this, and it now responds in a very natural, it can joke with you. It has some empathy in its voice as well. So it's very, very natural to convey your thoughts into it. It also has great reasoning and planning, so it understands what you've said. And if you used LLMs, you know that if you conveyed a very complicated idea, it would still understand. And then now something we're starting to pull in is adding memory and context. So at the beginning, ChatGPT was mostly ask a question, get an answer. Now it has some personalization, understanding, and it builds on top of what you just shared to him. So that becomes a very good platform to build a lot of your IPs into them and start sharing software through that mechanism versus the traditional one, which is let's build complicated user interfaces and hope that users will come. So when we're talking about AI-first experiences, this is the definition. And again, it's not about the model. It's about building applications differently. It's about using modern AI to assist users with driving complex cognitive tasks. And this is why Microsoft became a co-pilot company, because we've built software for so many years and we've seen adoption drop and drop. And now it's time for us to try and generate all of those features and innovations in a different way for users to use. I want to share with you one quick story before talking about some of the opportunities for startups, which is a personal one. When we shared Copilot for Office, one of the key features that we were doing a lot of surveys to understand what drives the adoption, why people like it so much. And one of the coolest features, we went into a bank and they said, it's amazing that that can bring data from our SAP and some of our CRM customers, and I just tell them, give me all of the orders, and I'm popping up in a great table. So they were super excited that they thought that Copilot is the engine behind that. The feature that they've used was in this bank from 2013. That means there's 10 years of that feature. Nobody ever used it before we introduced it in a different way. And that is something that are saying, wow, Copilot is so smart. It's actually not Copilot. It's actually something that was there, but it was so complicated to use. Another cool example is what happens with pivot tables. I personally love pivot tables, but let's just say that Copilot drove pivot tables here, because now it's much more easier to use that very complicated but very powerful feature. That's kind of the thinkings in terms of the Copilot. Move beyond features to adoption. Think about the way that you're delivering this on top of the platform to make sure that you're creating the stickiness and the reach for your customers. You can see some of the numbers here. I'm not going to go on top of them, but those are numbers that we at Microsoft never saw, ever, in terms of how much users like this, the stickiness that it creates, the way that if you take away GitHub for developers today, GitHub Copilot, they would rather leave the company and not go back to what they used to do, which is building all manually. So just the mindset that happens is very much what happens when you're taking a platform. And think about previous platforms, and you can understand, like, if it would be like I'm coming to you and taking away your phone. That's a platform. You can't live without it. Same thing is happening with AI if you're starting to embrace it. So let's talk about AI as a platform. And again, regardless of the model, that could be right for GPT-5, GPT-6, whatever. We're thinking in a different mindset right now, and we're not just celebrating every model that comes out. So the first application that is definitely on top of what everybody's doing right now is building assistant. So trying to build their own Copilot, their own custom way to deliver capabilities into users. You can see some of the examples here. Most of the startups that we're working with are taking search and just driving it into AI assistant while still building context-based experiences. You can see here in the example, we're taking UX, but we're building it on the right context. So it is being delivered, but it's being delivered as part of a discussion. And it is very, very personalized. That alone, which is just a different way to build application, you can see some of the examples here. Klarna AI, in 1 month, they've handled 2/3 of their customer service with an assistant, and they estimate $40 million of revenue just from that in 1 month. So think about the way that just switching gears in terms of how do we deliver software can do much more than building more and more features into that software. If we're looking at why so many AI systems fail, it's usually lack of trust. We've actually spent a lot of that trust by, introducing bots too early. So people hate bots right now, and you have to build a trust with it again. And usually they don't have a lot of internal knowledge. This is where we're thinking about this again as a platform, not as a model. There's a lot here that needs to happen for this to be right, and a lot of it revolves around data. I would say that there's like common practices. How do you get data and full manipulation into the LLM? You can add your data, you can do some RAG, we'll talk in a second what it is, or fine-tune or train. In our experience as Microsoft for Startups, 90% of the use cases are actually just that. Prepare the data and then deliver that context to the LLM, to the AI in the right way. So you actually today, in my experience, that number is probably even higher. You don't have to go directly to fine-tuning or to training or to have data scientists. This is all in the capacity of developers today. What it means, and it's quite easy to understand, there's a user question. It needs to be embedded with a lot of internal knowledge, so it will get the right answer at the right time and then put it into the large language model. There's a lot of ways to build it. You can see it here on Azure, for example, taking the input, and then we're doing a lot of things. We're getting some context there. We're good at getting some user data there as well, the card data, and then we're packing it up and putting it into the AI to get the right answer at the right time. So it's not about the model. It's really about building this as a platform, getting the right data at the right time, and that would remain even if we're going to different platforms, GPT-5, GPT-6. It will all stay the same. This is the capacity of a platform, because this is things that we need to build for everything to really work together. We're thinking about re-ranking today, which means if you have two things, two documents, and they say the same thing or they say different things, how do LLM evaluate and say what would be the right answer for that user? But if you're building on top of all of those cool things within a platform, if you're taking data and then ranking, then you will have great AI assistants, and that is something that you can use platform capabilities like Azure to do. I think one of the biggest examples of RAG today is definitely OpenAI itself. So GPTs and the Assistant API is built on top of Azure AI Search, which means this is the world's largest RAG workload. It can take a lot of context, a lot of data, and empower your application at the right time with the right context. So this is one thing, and again, if you're building assistants, don't think about the model, think about the platform, think about the data platform, the delivery platform. It's much more important than the model that you're choosing. Second piece, I would call it near future. It's an extension. If I'm looking at what Bill Gates mentioned a few years back, a platform was when the economic value of everybody on top of the platform actually exceeds the value of the platform itself. And think about, for example, the mobile. Okay, so we have Apple and all the money that they're making out of phones, but the App Store and everything that delivered probably made much more. And if you take all of the Ubers, Airbnbs, Netflix, Spotify that were built on top of that, that means that the platform, the things, the extensions on top of the platforms are much more powerful. We're now entering an age that we're starting to look at those AI models as platforms that you can build on top of them directly. Let's see some examples. So we talked a little bit about building your own assistant, but a cool way to do this is to just run directly on top of the existing ones. That could be Copilot, that could be GPTs, or there's a lot of other options out there as well, which means you don't need to get people to download your application, go to your website, do anything like that. They just need to be on top of the platform and then use that skill. So if we start off with AI assistants, if we can think about them as AI extensions, which is really grounding this into the experience of the Copilot itself. And that does require some of the connectors, some of the plugins, so it will do things, and then also getting into the ecosystem. Let's see some examples of this. This is like, I gave an example of the marketplace for Copilot, but there's a lot of different examples out there because there's a lot of different platforms that are coming. This is our Copilot. It may get the right answer or it may not. But what you can do today is just go to the extension store and install your own extension. That means that now you have single sign-on exactly as you would do with installing an app on top of your mobile phone. Now you're benefiting from our reach, our distribution, our user base to deliver what you're trying to do within the user. They don't need to go outside of context. You can see here a lot of examples, a lot of extensions that are already out there, and then you can just install them and start using them. This is a great example. So this is our Copilot. You see, you can work on it and ask a question, and then quickly you can switch into a different skill. In this example, we're switching into a skill of a CRM, and then we're asking questions on top of that CRM and getting answers, even doing things, updating stuff. The cool thing about this, you never left Copilot. You did all of this as an extension. You can commercialize this similar to app stores all over the place and get your own way to license it, to build on a service. So think about that massive way of you to build applications. I would say the only thing that reminds me of this is what happened when World Wide Web came in. And then instead of installing, remember you had exes and installations and everything, and now you just had to have a browser and put a link, and that's it. This is the same simplicity. We're looking also at a future where LLMs or co-pilots could actually suggest the skill that you need to complete your mission. So you can start even battling with other ones in terms of doing things first. There's not a lot yet, because this is quite new. Even in our capacity, it's something we've just announced the extensions about a month ago. So it's a good time to be first. And again, think about other applications. If you're now creating even a better Uber, it's not going to be enough, because there was someone there before you, and that ate all of the market. So something is happening right now, and to be fast is actually even more important than to be accurate. To be there to make sure that you deliver and empower on top of what that does. So we talk about assistants, we talk about extensions. I will take 1 minute to talk about AI automation and agents. This is still future. In many of the cases, we're talking about things that were impossible. And again, us as Microsoft, we talk about Copilot, so always have a human on the loop. We're now seeing them as difficult. So it's something that you can achieve. You can actually do some complete automation with AI. You have to think about them working independently, responding not just to people, but also to events, to data, to things like that, and then acting on behalf of someone. So again, we just talked about Copilot as a productivity tool, but now it moves all the way to agents and doing things on his behalf and making decisions on his behalf. And can we achieve autopilot? I'm not sure. Okay, there's a fine line here, and you can see here some examples of companies that tried to give it some more empowerment to talk on their behalf, and that was not mitigated very well. So this is a great example of Air Canada that the representative, the agent here, kind of made up something, and the company was liable to do that. So think about some of the risk here as well in providing autonomous ways. But that's definitely something to look for. There's some ways to do this, either creating AI flows, which is really defining what needs to happen. You can also record your window. So you've seen GPT-4o. They can actually understand what you're doing. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just clicking record, showing him how I operate day to day. And then from those areas, it can actually say, if you want me, I can do this. Because every time you get an email, this is what you do, I can do this for you. So trying to do this from a copycat perspective, or trying to have a real assistant look at what you do and then try to do this instead of you. And then there's a lot of world here of multi-agent automation, also things that you should definitely look into. I don't have a lot of time, so I just want to summarize here. We talked about AI as a platform. I know that a lot of the expectations from Microsoft or OpenAI, when we come here, let's talk about the models. Let's celebrate GPT, whatever. Okay? We're not in this point anymore. I think this is the right time to think about this as a platform. Everything that you're seeing here, whether it's assistant, extension, or automation, will continue to evolve, even if it's GPT-5 or 6 or 7. So it's a new way for you to think about AI, not just as an API to summarize cool stuff, or just comparing a few models together, but actually thinking about the opportunity for you to be first in market to do something completely different and start working on stickiness and instead of features, and looking at adoption and getting the user at the right time. And this is, if you ask me, the opportunity for a lot of the startups that are currently built on our program. So I'll summarize with this. You have to build a great product. A very important thing for every startup, the model is not your product, okay? And we need to start creating a difference or a barrier between what we provide and what the model provides. So if we are building to create those next-gen experiences, we will be immutable, and we will make the most of our platform with still keeping a gap from what happens if the other GPTs are coming. There's a shameless plug here before I end. This is the Microsoft Stack for startups. We actually offer tools to build everything you've just seen, assistant, extensions, or automation, regardless to where you think your idea should be at. If you want to join in, this is a good time to take off your phones and click it. Startups.microsoft.com. It's our Founders Hub. You can get a lot of credits here, up to 150K, with also OpenAI credits. And my team is here to assist and guide you in terms of building your solution, whether it's extension, whether it's automation, or whether it's assistant. Thank you so much.